Hi, you're watching Security Interviews. Today we're interviewing Brian Tuskan, Senior Director with Microsoft Global Security. Brian, good to see you. Thanks
Chris,
for taking the time.
thank you very much for inviting me.
So at Security Interviews, we normally ask, the first question is, how did you first get involved in the security industry?
I got involved really through my work in law enforcement. I was a police officer and detective for close to 13 years. I started off in the Honolulu Police Department and then transferred over to the City of Redmond in Washington. And I got involved in ASIS as a detective through Chief Steve Harris, who unfortunately passed away way too soon. But Chief Harris was a big influence in my life in the private sector. And that's how I started really looking at the private security industry as a detective and the key of partnerships. With law enforcement, it's very important to have a strong relationship with the private sector.
Absolutely.
And that was really my entree into knowing these multiple security professionals in every industry, and of course joining the local Puget Sound chapter years ago, and then in my transition to the corporate world really occurred 14 years ago, where I came to the Microsoft Corporation, and I've been here ever since in the global security group.
So Microsoft is a very large entity, large campus here in Redmond, but a large footprint worldwide. And I know you've had different positions as you've moved into the director position and have responsibility for a lot of that footprint. How is that corporate environment, that open corporate environment and security, how do they meld?
Well, that's a great question. And when I first came to the corporate side with Microsoft, I came in as an investigator in their corporate security team, as they called it then. And it was very fluid. As being a physical security team within a technology company, it's really a different mix because you're a cost center and you're there to protect and life safety, that's core. The enterprise, as Microsoft grew, it was very complex. I'd like to say I was fairly technical when I was a detective, so coming here with my technology background, I knew it was important to have a good technology foundation within the global security team. So after about 3 years in investigations, I moved into an operational role. That's when Mike Howard came over. He's the CSO of Microsoft Global Security. And I oversaw the technology operations and investigations team and really focused on how do we improve operations end to end from not only an operational perspective but through leveraging technology. And the key is having a strategy. I meet security executives all over the world, and sometimes they struggle because they go out and try to solve the problem with gadgets they see at certain shows, and they try to implement it, and then it just really messes up the operation. You have to have a strategic foundation first, and then build on that strategy. And it's a very long process. We'd be here all day if I told you how long it took to get Microsoft Global Security to where it is. The key is having strong leadership. So you have Mike Howard at the helm, captain of the ship, and his leadership team. 3 of my peers, Mike Foynes, head of operations, Denise Rubens, head of risk mitigation, and then Chuck Randolph for intelligence and executive protection. We've all been together for 10 years,
Yep.
over 10 years. And that continuity, or I like to call organizational continuity, really helped grow the group where it needed to be in the direction as Microsoft grew. And as you know, we have evolved. We have a new CEO, and we're focused on the cloud, on mobile, platform, and also productivity. So those 4 areas is the focus of our company, and that's where we're headed as a security department.
Yep. So I'm going to jump ahead a little bit and say that you have a GSOC here in the United States, here in Redmond, one in the UK, and then one in India. And how do those work together, interoperability work in a security environment?
Well, before I talk about the 3 GSOCs, let's talk about the 15 that we had when I first started. And they weren't really GSOCs, they were more life safety control centers or security operations centers, standalone, your typical hardware-rich environment that really managed the operations of that particular campus. And about 10 years ago, we embarked on a strategic plan based off of risk, because our operations center here in Redmond was a single point of failure. If it went down, there was no interoperability. So based off of the risk, we did a zero-based study and came up with a strategic long-term plan to build 3 global security operations centers that are interoperable, that you could operationally load share, because they're all on the same corporate network, and able to manage the entire portfolio and infrastructure enterprise-wise at Microsoft with 3 GSOCs that are always on, and it's been, the past 7 years, a very successful program. We're continually looked at for benchmarking, and it's been very successful based off of a partnership with all my peer groups to ensure the operation works. The hardest piece is operating the SOCs.
One of the most difficult things for a security director, looking at the C-suite and the budget for a year within a company, is how do we bring value to the organization? And I know that years ago, you guys came up with a very interesting way of showing how you can give back that revenue into the organization through your revenue influencing structure. So maybe you could follow up on that and explain how that works.
Well, we did have a extension of my communication and technology team where we called it a showcase program. Similar to Microsoft has a very large IT showcase, because we're a technology company. And we would have set demonstrations showcasing the capabilities of the Operations Center on our commercial off-the-shelf technology and partner-based technology. And that program had been in effect for about 7 years and is highly successful. As we evolved, we've kind of passed on the responsibility to key partners that do it as their core day job. Currently, I'm responsible for all security technology, for physical security technology for the company, including investigations and also the security communication team. And that's core. I'm focusing on the core, life safety deliverables. When you say bringing return on investment or value to the company, I have the luxury working for Microsoft where we're able to leverage the technology that we have and showcase it. People want to see it. I would ask other directors out there, because I've heard comments, well, look, great, you work for Microsoft, good for you. Like, I work for a cereal company, right? How can I help? Well, what I would recommend is being strategic. Look at security as a business. Now, you don't have to go out and get your MBA or business degree. You just have to understand the fundamentals of business. And if you're going to ask for money or investment, you have to speak in business terms. So you have to build your business acumen. When you speak to the finance director or the controller, when you're looking for budget or investment, you have to tie it to either the company's bottom line, profit and loss, if you're using capital expenditures, understanding how the expenses will hit when it depreciates. Do you build a rich, infrastructure-rich environment, or do you pay for a service and just pay kind of operating expenses? You have to put all of this in a strategic plan, and then with a return on investment, it varies from any company. So maybe go back 10 years when we're using analog video, VHS tape. My poor investigation assistants like in a little room pressing buttons, watching a VHS tape. Very inefficient. With the investment we put in the first project, I believe it was about $1 million to change over to digital video recorders.
Yep.
And within less than a year, we were able to show we saved well over that in reduction in theft, and then capturing certain individuals that were stealing and getting recoveries. That was built in the plan. So we said that would happen, and it did. So you have to have your strategy behind the direction you want to go, and say this is what's going to save the company money, and that's how you get an investment. You can't rely on fear-mongering. That's usually the easiest way to go. Well, you got terrorists out there, you got this risk, so on and so forth. Just give me the money and I'll build. No, you have to have a sound strategy and a plan.
So as Microsoft global security goes forward, what's in the future? What can we look forward to?
The cloud. The cloud, baby. That's where the future is in physical security. If you look at our operations center, most of the infrastructure sits in the cloud. Private cloud, hybrid cloud, even the public cloud. And that gives you high availability and uptime. And you can access your data wherever you're at. So you don't need a fixed building to have your operations center. If this one goes down, we can go fire up in another conference room and be ready in 15 minutes operationally. We can give operational load share interoperability to either India or the UK. So the future, in my opinion, is the cloud, and how do you leverage software as a service, infrastructure as a service, to augment your security team, not just Microsoft, but the whole industry. Myself and my director of technology, Mike Faddis, we're always looking at the industry in a future strategic way, years ahead. And we want to be kind of trailblazers at where we think the technology is going to be 5-10 years from now. I've been talking about cloud for the last 5 years.
Yeah.
A lot of people didn't even know what the cloud was, and you just really have to explain the cloud is utility computing. Years ago, when you bought land, built a house on it, you dig a well for water, maybe put up a windmill for electricity, you're not going to do that now. You go into a house, you expect there's a power line, you're going to pay a utility cost.
Yep.
Well, there's no difference with utility computing. When you pay for the software as a service or infrastructure as a service, you're paying a service fee to the provider, Microsoft being one of the biggest and most reliable, and you pay an operational expense. You don't have that IT heavy infrastructure to manage your business.
So if you're a security director and you're watching this video and you're looking at your infrastructure and it's fairly old, and you're listening to this video, you're looking at the possibility for that director to really make a quantum leap forward without the investment, the heavy investment of computers and systems and whatnot, because they can jump right on to the cloud and be just as efficient.
Well, I'm just asking they put some thought in it. There are a lot of directors out there that are super old school and think it's voodoo science, right? Unless they could touch it and feel it. And I always use the rack huggers. You know, they love the racks in their building and they don't want it to leave. But I can tell you, there are instances, Hurricane Sandy on the East Coast, were a small police department that did not have any cloud infrastructure, just had servers sitting under their desk in the basement.
Yeah.
So when it got flooded, everything got wet.
Yeah.
Nothing, they had backups, but by the time you got all the servers walking through the rain and floodwaters,
Yeah.
you lost a lot of information. You can back up in the cloud, you can back up locally. That's where I see the future being. Getting back to your question on the security director, they have to understand it's not about how much you spend, because you can have the biggest budget in the world and still not be successful.
Yep.
Stick to the strategy and see what works best for them. So I'll throw a shameless plug out there for anyone going to ISC West in I believe it's April in 2015. I'm going to be moderating a panel. And the panel basically is, should you build your own GSOC or virtualize it? Meaning, should you build a brick and mortar, put the infrastructure in, or can you virtualize the signals, all of the work of the operators
Yep.
in a virtual environment, and you just pay the service? And I'm going to have 3 panelists. One that's the end user that has built SOCs. One is a consultant that consults to build SOCs.
Yep.
And one is a provider that runs a SOC. And then we're just going to open the discussion. I've sat on panels. I've actually presented at ISMA, International Security Managers Association, as a guest of Mike Howard. And there was a whole discussion topic on that subject, because not everyone has a huge capital budget. With the cloud, it changes everything. It will give a smaller department or company, security department, big time capabilities.
Because frankly, it'll give you real-time information, and you can get it from anywhere. So you can get up in the morning at your home, get on your system, and be able to take a snapshot of your whole security program.
And that's the beauty of Microsoft. Obviously, I work there. And Microsoft is all about productivity and the platform. And when we say the platform, is exactly what you just described. Every device that you have, whether it's a mobile phone, a tablet, a desktop, it's all connected. It's all seamlessly integrated. And a lot of the technology is agnostic, where it kind of fits cross-pollination in different devices. And the cloud platform of tools and services is where it just ties everything together. Nice. So you can seamlessly manage a crisis from your operation center or your hotel room or lobby because you're traveling or in the airport.
That's fantastic. So I'm going to jump forward a little bit and ask you, if there was a young person just going through the structure for their career, if you will, and deciding on whether they wanted to go into security or some other occupation, what would you say to that person?
I would say first they have to decide if the security industry is what they want. So they got to do their research. Join security organizations, and like I said, ASIS is the premier. There's other ones out there, but do your own research and look at what does the industry offer. There's thousands of different type of jobs. There's categories that you probably can boil down to 50, but everybody does it differently. And then you need to decide, do I work in the security industry from a logical network, or you want it physical? That's where you need to decide. Just do your homework and then test the waters. Most security professionals love security. It's in their DNA. And then follow their passion, and they'll be successful.
So one last question. What do you see as the largest challenge for the security industry going forward?
If I had to pick one major challenge, I would just say continuity of the organization. For those of you that go on LinkedIn and you see the updates about how people switch from jobs and change jobs, especially at the more executive level, well, you disrupt the continuity of the org. You have to restart to actually get a program off and running. So as I said, Mike Howard, his leadership, and his team, over 10 years we've been together. It takes that long to build that core delivery and responsibility. So I think that one of the biggest problems is having an organization that is stable, with the right people in the right seats, and that's kind of the first thing off the top of my head.
Well, Microsoft is a very, very large organization, and I commend you on 10 years of great leadership.
Well, thank you very much, Chris.